so I've killed as much time as I can. So
we'll go to exec session.
And no one from New Roots has wandered in. So we're gonna keep you here for a second because I'm gonna call the Board of Education meeting to order.
And I'm going to move we go to executive session now for the discussion of particular employees and negotiations.
Second.
That was a tie. We'll go with Cap. She went with it. So we're going to be in exec session. Then we will come back at 7 o'clock, and if we have to go back in exec, we will. But we're going to be in exec for a half hour and then come back. Thanks, everybody.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thanks for your patience, those who have been here through a New Roots hearing, and we did our exec before. We went into a public session. We moved to exec session, so we didn't have to do it later. So folks would go home, and we're now back in public session, which we're always happy to be in public session. And we're going to ask for any approval or modifications to the agenda.
I'd like to offer 3, actually. I'd like to move from the consent 4A, 4C, and 4E, and place them to be voted on separately. So they would go down to school district business, so they would become 8B, 8C, and 8D. Jen, you with me?
4A, 4C, 4E.
Right, we're going to move them down to 8. Thank you.
I'll move them.
Thank you.
C and D. Right? Yep. Actually, I have glasses. I don't have to squint, but I'm going to do that anyway. So thank you, Brad. And we do have something a little bit unusual. It doesn't happen very often. It usually happens after the end of the school year and when we're for our first board meeting in July, but today we are going to administer the oath of office for a new school board member, and we're going to do that right now so that person can actually vote and be accepted and approved. And typically the board clerk does this, and there's a big book.
Mary, you want to come over here?
Eldred, please.
You've done this before.
That is the official log, and that goes back a few years. So actually, well used. For those of you who missed our last board meeting, we've been in discussions for a bit and about what to do about Judy Maxwell's resignation. And Eldred Harris very thankfully stepped forward and agreed to serve out Judy's term until May, and that was voted on at the last meeting by the board. And now, please go ahead.
Eldred will read the oath.
I will support I, Eldred Harris, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
So, sign there.
Let's hope my ability is decent.
Eldred signed. It's official. Thank you, Eldred.
They just want sacks.
Exactly. And now we'll resume our normal procedure with a public comment period. And this is for our school district. We had public comment period earlier regarding New Roots, but this is for us and anyone who wishes to speak. I'm not sure whether anyone signed up, but if you did.
Good evening. My name is Carla Strong, and I represent the ESPs of Ithaca. And I'm happy to say, after 18 long months of negotiating, we have ratified an agreement. So we look forward to hearing back after your discussions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak right now? I'm not seeing, hearing anyone, so thank you, and we'll move on to our outstanding student representatives from not only Ithaca High School but also LACS, and so go ahead, guys.
Okay, so as you all know, this semester is ending soon, and so for us that means that students are writing self-evaluations and teachers are writing narrative evaluations of students' work. And then during Regents Week, we'll each student will meet with their family group leader, which is like their homeroom leader, and they'll read their evaluations. They'll share a piece of work that they're proud of, and they'll reflect on their goals that we established at the end, beginning of the year, and then look forward into the next semester and do some planning. And then also our site-based council is going to review our new digital portfolio system, and we're implementing that system right now. So this will be the first mid-year season that we're using it, so that's exciting.
And then a week from tonight, on January 19th at approximately 6:30 at the LACS Black Box Theater, there's going to be a concert band, string band, and the LACS choir's performance. And there's going to be a piece from Star Wars, so I'm a fan of that. Jurassic Park, some John Williams going on. And the next night there's going to be an additional concert of the street band and Celtic bands. And the reason that it's not the same night is that we've done that before, and it's been like a 3 to 4 hour long concert. So that's been split up into 2 different nights on the 19th and 20th, and we hope to see some of you there.
Yeah. And that's that.
Yeah.
Standing, just what night is the concert again?
So there's 2 concerts. There's
Okay.
one, the concert band and the string band and the choirs, which is a week from tonight on the January 19th at 6:30. And there's a following concert the next night on the 20th.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I always need to hear things twice, so thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Ithaca High, please.
Sure. So Student Council has actually taken the initiative to schedule a leadership seminar tomorrow after school for those who were voted in, including everyone's favorite IHS representatives. For about an hour, students and staff will come together to talk about their roles in a student-run government, along with planning for future events. This will be a great opportunity to expand our knowledge about the political system, and I'm sure all the participants will walk away with a better understanding of what leadership really is. And last Saturday, FIRST released the kickoff video that explains their next challenge. IHS's robotics team, Code Red, waited with bated breath as the live stream talked about the competition. This year's theme is First Stronghold, where teams must build robots to transport boulders made of foam into the enemy's castle to decrease the defenses, while also running over fields full of obstacles.
Well, this last weekend we had the IHS Model UN with the wonderful advising of Mr. Wright and Mr. Prokosh attend for the first time in many years the Central New York Model United Nations Conference in Syracuse, held at Syracuse College. The delegation did fairly well, taking home several honorable mentions and one excellent best delegate, and we look forward to attending next year. Additionally, perhaps several students, including myself, the favorite unit of gym, will be holding a competition. We have the IHS Badminton Tournament. Saturday, January 16th at 12:30 in Bliss Gym.
It's very popular,
We can see the
apparently.
excitement, it's palpable. Students will be signing up, registering in the cafeteria in teams of 2 to hotly contest and play for their names engraved in the IHS Badminton Trophy. Now there's even a costume prize for the best costumes, so it should be lots of fun and a great show of physical activity.
Link Crew's annual Cocoa and Cram event will take place next Thursday, the 21st, after school. All freshmen are invited for an afternoon of homework and hot cocoa. Link Crew leaders and teachers will be available to help out freshmen with their end of the semester work and preparations for midterms, which are soon approaching. And this is sure to be a successful and enjoyable event, as it always has been. And that is all we have for you today.
Great, thanks, Ithaca High. Board response is, anyone? Anyone? You go, Chris.
I want to say something about badminton. I'm going to refrain.
I'll just, if I may, just comment on this year's first robotics challenge, because I always watch the kickoff, and although I no longer have a child on the team, particularly bittersweet this year because this is the one year that my expertise as a medieval historian would have helped the engineers, and I'm just not in a position to move forward right now. So, but hopefully, my family and I will be attending a couple of the competitions.
No fire and brimstone involved with this current year competition, apparently.
They've got trebuchets. They've got all the.
It's a big slingshot. No?
Okay, thanks, Bob.
I'm just trying to help you out.
And with all the medieval engines of war, they will be storming castles, and the simulation made it look like the students will have to wear armor this year, so that should be particularly exciting.
AP Castle Storming. I can see it now.
Yeah.
AP European history.
And Dr. Brown, I can't say the word. Pat, the mechanism again, how you pronounce it?
Oh, the trebuchet.
Right.
Oh, the trebuchet.
Right. Exactly. But Dr. Brown, they do use that for pumpkin tossing contests out in the Midwest, and so it's you'll see that on Discovery Channel every now and then. But really outstanding pieces of equipment. Anyway.
Along the lines of pronunciation, so the badminton tournament sounds, well, I only say that because I'm a fan of it, always said badminton, but I have Canadian friends who have mocked me for not pronouncing it badminton, which is really hard.
Never say a word you can't pronounce. That's what I live by. But and I would have to give a shout out to Dryden High School. I was at the high school last night. Dryden High School's boys varsity basketball team came in and beat Ithaca. I mean that's a big deal for Dryden. Actually, they have some very outstanding athletes. It was an excellent game. I do want to mention it was really a good game. Good sportsmanship on both sides. It easily could have, gotten out of hand if kids allowed it. Two very disciplined teams playing a very hotly contested game. So it was good, really just a good game. Outstanding effort by Dryden. So we'll give them creds. The Class B school beating a AA school, not quite Hoosiers, but pretty close to really an outstanding win for Dryden, which is 11-1 and have only lost one game. So their JV team, I have to point out, did not do well. So Ithaca pretty much blew them off the court, but we won't talk about JV. But it's Dryden is got some talent. It's all good. So anyway, we'll move on because we have other things to do, and the consent agenda is up next, I believe.
I'll move the consent.
Second.
Second by Pat, yep. And with the modifications noted previously, any other questions regarding consent? And Board Docs has all sorts of information regarding the consent, if everybody can figure that out. And any questions? There are more attachments, part of the consent agenda, so keep checking as you go through your Board Docs. We are getting used to the new system. If you have any questions, certainly ask Jennifer, okay, where is something? And we'll figure it out, Jennifer, eventually. Any questions? We're all good? All in favor? That's everyone but Eldred. Those opposed, those abstaining would be Eldred since he was just sworn in. It's a very valid reason to abstain. So, again, looking at this. So, Dr. Brown, I think I'm up to you.
Yeah, thank you for saying this opportunity. Just one item tonight. I wish to recognize and celebrate the life of a wonderful educator. Miss Marty Ali left this world a few days ago, and many folks know her as the mother of Lydia Ali, who was our chief academic officer. But what folks may not know is that Marty was a teacher at DeWitt Middle School. She was on this Board of Education. She was the president of the family, she may have done that too, but Family and Children's Services for a while. She did much with the Women League of Voters, so she's done quite a bit in and around Ithaca for many, many years, and a great life and touched a lot of lives. So, in addition to being on this Board of Education, so I just wanted to recognize her contributions to our community, and also note that her Lydia's not here tonight. There's going to be a celebration of her life tomorrow, I believe at 7 p.m., and that's going to be at the Unitarian Society of Ithaca. So That's all I had tonight. Just wanted folks to know about that.
Very good. Thanks, Dr. Brown. So, so we'll move on to school district business and year-round budgeting. And Amanda, you are going to walk us through. Well, it's budget, and it's always budget.
It is.
It is
always budget, which
it
is
is
sort of
year-round.
what this is about. So, you know, I think the last time I was in front of you all, we were talking about our project charter, and the project charter for the year-round budgeting is really about trying to address the budget sort of from a very macro view, in the sense of this is 1 year coming from a number of years prior and then going forward a number of years, and also trying to make this understandable for many, many stakeholders and community members. We're dealing with a little bit of heir-apparent issues. Let me just try this again here. What we decided at our last meeting was that we would try to do some work, very short snippets for the public and for the board, to be able to look at sort of the budget. As you know, during this time, this is a very fluid and sort of moving target. There's a lot of information that we don't have at this moment in time, but we do have some knowns. And so I think from every board meeting now until we pass the budget, and then probably even beyond that, there are many, many areas that we would like to discuss and really bring public and be very transparent about. And so we feel like these, you know, anywhere from a 5 to a 7 to maybe a 10-minute presentation at each of the board meetings around, you know, something that has budget impact, you know, again, some of the facilities work that we're doing. There's a lot of just really wonderful topics that aren't just the nuts and bolts of here's the revenue, here are the expenditures. That being said, today I really do want to sort of frame for the public a little overview. And again, I'd like to just sort of try to stick to a very short time frame because I don't want to get too overwhelming. We're still pretty early on the process. This should be familiar to everyone, this graph. And what I did here, as you can see where the dotted lines are, is really where we sort of ended our just last fiscal year, 2014-2015. And you can see a lot of our work over the course of time has been trying to get our revenue lines back over our expenditure lines. We've talked very publicly about that. You can do that in a number of ways. Obviously, if revenue increases, that's fantastic news, and that can come in from the tax levy, and that, as you can see, sort of that steep sort of you know, incline of the line there with the revenue shows that this was really because of the tax levy increase that we went above the tax cap for. Also, you can see that some other ways that we can do the work is by lowering our expenditures, right? That's not really enjoyable for any of us. A lot of that is around evaluating program, looking at staffing, deciding what the needs are, prioritizing those, and then oftentimes making staffing cuts, changes, and efficiencies. And so as you can see here, that sort of, those two worlds came together to enable us to be able to bring the revenue line back over the expenditure line. The good news about when the graphs do that here and then here is that you're building your fund balance, right? You're building your savings account as you're moving forward into the future. And we know that right now the future is pretty, it's a little bit, I think, makes us a little bit nervous, I guess I would say. There's a lot of unknowns around the tax cap calculation, the restrictions around the budget. There's still a lot of unknowns around state aid. Once the GEA, if they bring that back to school districts, and reminder, the GEA is the gap elimination adjustment. It's the amount of state aid that is really for the district that they hold back at the state and don't allocate it back to us. You know, we're concerned about sort of this revenue line, and as you can see here, the reason why this was so steep was because of that tax levy increase, but really if this trajectory had gone on, we really wouldn't have corrected things pretty quickly. As you look forward, we're in this current year right now in 15-16, that's where we're living. My initial estimate right now is that in a good case scenario, not the best case scenario, the best case scenario would be that these lines would continue where revenue is above expenditure. It's still too early to tell. In Finance Committee, we'll be doing a lot of what's called fund balance projections. Fund balance projections are really trying to sort of chart these lines. Where are we going with revenue? Where are we going with expenditure? But right now, if we just sort of assume that we didn't use any fund balance, we allocated $2 million of fund balance to our budget to sort of serve as a contingency and a cushion. We're looking to that really as more of a savings goal. We'd like to end the year without spending that $2 million. If we were to do that, that means that the real revenue and the real expenditures would cross. And they would actually just be at the same point on this graph. We would end the year equally. Moving forward, though, as you can see, if we don't do the work around budget development and look forward 2 to 3 years, even 4 years, you can see sort of where this trajectory might lead us. And so I want to just talk a little bit about some of the factors that might drive that, and I'll bring this graph back again after we do that. Right now, this is sort of what we know, right? And unfortunately, what we know is that there are still some unknowns. We know that the tax levy, when I do the calculation, and there's a number of factors that go into it, the inflation rate will be very close to 0. When I do the budget, it's actually going to be 0.006%. And so that's right now is pretty close to 0 as you can get. Some of the other factors are also very low. I think the local factors in the tax levy didn't increase as much as we'd like. We still don't know about state aid runs. The governor will be speaking tomorrow to his executive budget, and then soon after the aid runs will come to the district for us. And so right now I want to just show you a little bit about revenue, and I'm trying to keep this very macro. And the one thing about when you do these charts, I just want everybody to understand, it sort of goes in a clockwise motion, but it doesn't start at 12. It starts at like a 1 or 2. So these align in a clockwise motion, and they're listed there. Our highest level of revenue, 72% of our revenue comes from local taxpayer dollars. Right? That's why we have a lot of these conversations. We don't get to rely on state aid like many other districts. There are districts just to the northeast of us, northwest of us, south of us, that a majority, these actually might be flipped. That state aid is really the primary revenue source for their districts. In our district, that is different. We really do rely on our local taxpayer share and our local tax levy. We also bring in a small amount of other revenues, and these would fluctuate depending on the pilots and other factors such as any kind of tuition that's paid, any Medicaid that comes to our district. And then you can see here my estimate for state aid for next year. I'm using right now as a placeholder what I know we're getting for this year. So this could increase, but we'll again, as we dive into those numbers, as the meetings go forward, will be more and more exact. And so again, these are all moving targets. These are my estimates as of, and I put the date here, January 12th, and we'll be sort of honing these numbers in and moving forward. Just a reminder, and I know we talked a lot about this last year, and I can't say it enough. There is a lot of media coverage when the governor's state aid runs are released. And oftentimes, our district and many others, it hits the newspapers and it says, Ithaca City School District gets $2.2 million increase, right? Oftentimes, we have to remind ourselves every time that hits the paper that that is not what we actually receive. The governor's state aid runs are based on estimates that are submitted to the state months before the governor's budget runs are released. They do not reflect our actual behaviors. They include formula aid, which is based on sort of our wealth ratios and our population numbers. Those are pretty standard and they don't fluctuate too much. But they also include expense-driven aid, and that is 100% based on our behaviors as a district. What services are we purchasing from BOCES? What transportation aid are we generating? And so again, we put these estimates into the state. They generate numbers off of that. They're oftentimes, and actually they're always, much higher than what we actually receive. So when we're talking about budget, I just want to remind folks that when you look at our revenue numbers that I'll be sharing with you as they start to tighten, they will not be reflective of what the governor's runs are. They will be less, and there's good reason for that. What we know about expenditures, so that was all revenue. Okay, what we know about expenditures just thus far, right, we're in the process of settlement, so those again those are moving targets, they're fluid, we don't know where we'll land. Those will drive our salary increases as well as increases with fringe that go along with it. We know that there is a decrease in the state retirement systems, both for employees and teachers, but again, depending on where we land with salaries, the decrease might not be as much as we anticipated because the base will go up and the retirement rates are calculated off of that salary, okay? We know that already BOCES, when we work with the consortium around workers' comp, we're anticipating about a 10% increase in workers' comp. That's just shy of $1 million in our budget. Health insurance, we're anticipating anywhere from a 6 to 7% increase. BOCES, we anticipate usually each year about a 3% increase. They have sort of their increase to program costs and their bargaining agreements that drive those services, and so we often anticipate that. And debt service is relatively flat from last year. That's actually set on the schedule. And so, again, we'll be honing in these numbers as we move forward. But I just want to capture a little bit of sort of how do we spend our money. Okay, and so again, I'm trying to stay macro and give you just a quick overview of things. And again, we're starting sort of at that almost just shy of 12 o'clock hour and going around. The majority of our budget is made up of salary and fringe. Okay, so fringe are teachers' retirement system, employees' retirement system, workers' compensation. That makes up, as you can see, 54% of our budget. If you also include benefits into that, that's another 17% of our budget. This is health and prescription and dental. And again, these are anticipated expenditures for the 16-17 year based on some of those factors that I just shared with you. The next largest is the BOCES budget, followed by supplies, equipment, and sort of the other sort of pieces of our budget, things that we need to pay for tuition. I know we talked about new routes, that's included in that. Transportation, legal, auditing, all of those pieces that would go along with those pieces, and then also the debt service. And again, as I sort of come forward to you each time we meet, I'll have more and more information to really give better explanation and definition about all of these categories and we delve in. And so again, I just want to remind folks that so our job moving forward right now is to, we're in the business office and the school districts and all the buildings are working on these lines, trying to keep them separate. This is not a final destination point, but this is sort of, we're hoping that this would be the worst case scenario. And we're hoping that the best case scenario would be that revenue would continue to outpace expenditure to build our fund balance. This is the next year that we'll be planning for, the 16-17 year. This is the number where we will come to you eventually as the numbers tighten. And obviously we would want to make sure that our revenue, our real revenue, will cover our real expenditures. And then we also build in contingencies that would be planned. And so we'll be able to plan for those. Eldred.
Can you please go back to the pie chart?
You got it.
Is it worth, or is it even possible to try and separate out what programming, what a slice, if we dedicated it to programming, would look like, or is that so intricately connected to salary and fringes that you can't do it?
So when you say programming, do you mean like the cost of how to run things?
Yeah, okay. I mean, you pick the top 5 programs that are valuable to the district.
Sure.
What would they cost?
I could do that for you, absolutely. So for example, if you wanted to, any time that you have questions about very specific things, we can actually do a 7-minute or 5-minute snippet on it.
I mean, because as a budget, as the fluid process progresses, we know we always get down to a position where we're actually talking about not pitting one program against each other, but we don't often have a concept of how much the good program rerun costs taxpayers.
Yep. So for example, I mean, we could take these numbers and I could show you athletics, right? I could show you fine and performing arts. I know David's done that before. We actually at Finance Committee get that micro, right? We really will focus on just, I think next time it's just facilities, maintenance, utilities, custodian, right? That budget. We will focus on transportation. So again, those minutes are public. We are able to share them, but I can also, if you have special requests around what it might look like in the bigger scheme of things, I'm happy to do that. Okay?
And Amanda, you can certainly show cost expenditures, cost of running at the high school and all the separate buildings.
Absolutely.
Because you're working with your well, building leaders on their separate budgets, correct?
That's right,
And
that's
then
right.
Feeding this, and you've been working with them for, well, year-round. Because
Yeah.
we do it year-round, but they're presenting budgets to you when?
Actually, they have certain budgets, mainly their supplies and equipment budgets, as well as sort of their extended day, any additional costs that are beyond their personnel. Those budgets have already been submitted to us with their requests, and that includes sort of equipment requests that might go above their school budget. That also is not just principals, but it's also directors. So we work with the director of special education, director of transportation, right? Director of facilities and school nutrition. Those are submitted. We then will look at them as an executive team. We then work with principals to work on staffing. So that's going to be coming up next. We're actually going to be looking at staffing and how many teachers, how many paraprofessionals, how many custodians, right, all the way down to everybody that's important and valuable that makes that building run. We'll be doing that in the next 2 months.
Right, and we've talked about this in the past, but really telling folks in the community, you don't want me making a decision on how many English teachers we need at the high school. That's not my role. I would not have that information. So we look for the building leaders at the various schools to tell us what do you need, and our role is how are we going to try to put this together so you have what you need.
And I think we picked up sort of a nice method in the past 2 years of having also a lot of my colleagues sitting at the table, right? Whether they be building principals or directors of the programs or fellow executive team members, to talk about sort of, again, how did we reach our decision and our proposal to Dr. Brown, who then proposes his budget to you. So this really is a process. We don't always get what we want in it, right? I mean, there are many times where we oftentimes, when we're developing the budget, we'll talk about priorities that we feel need to be addressed and how we're going to fund them moving forward with sustainability in mind. And so it's really, I think a lot of the district leadership and stakeholders have a valuable input into this process. I just want to show you a little bit, speaking of the process, it was sort of perfect timing. We'll obviously be gathering our data, we'll be putting them into our calculations, and then we will be talking about the budget development. I mentioned the stakeholder groups. Dr. Brown runs a superintendent's budget stakeholder group. We'll be working with our principals. We actually would like to work more with students. That was one of my personal goals this year, to try to talk to students about what their sort of prioritization is around the budget. We're going to be hopefully getting either through the principals or directly to teachers and paraprofessionals some of the budget ideas. I think those are things that we could do better that we haven't done in years past, and so those are sort of goals from the business office for us. But again, one of our major goals here is to establish a clear, predictable, and transparent budget process that is shared regularly with stakeholders and budget developers, and we really truly believe that. So this is the first of many. We'll try to keep these, again, as I said, very brief, and I appreciate all your questions. If you have particular pieces, Eldred, like you just mentioned, let me know, and then we can prep them for the next time, and we'll try to just focus in 5 minutes, look at that intensely, and then move on to the next topic.
Other questions now for Amanda?
What's the topic for the next finance committee is facilities and...
Facilities, utilities.
I believe so. And then I think transportation is soon after that.
I believe so. Yeah, we're doing it department by department.
Anything else for Amanda? Obviously, Amanda will be seeing you more.
We will. All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Amanda. We don't have an extensive school district business on the schedule for tonight, frankly, because of the hearing and not really knowing what that would look like. So we really, at this time, can go on to the items that we shifted to school district business, and that would be
right up there on the board.
the items that are right up on the board.
Yes.
Did I move the right ones?
You did. You got
A,
it.
C, and D, right?
Yep.
So we will address and move them separately.
I'll move the administrative and instructional staff list as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Second by Moore. Questions, anyone, regarding this item? Not hearing anything. Move seconded, all in favor? That would be Pat, Rob, Jen, Ann, and Moira, and Sean. Those opposed would be Chris and Brad. Those abstaining would be Eldred. So if my math is correct, that does pass. We need our 5, and we got our 6, correct? And go ahead.
I'll move the ISA collective bargaining agreement as presented in the board documents.
Second by Moira, thank you. Any questions, any comments at this time? None? Move seconded, all in favor? That would be, well, that's everybody. Those abstaining would be Eldred, thank you. Everyone but Eldred, and it's, so that certainly passes. And next?
I'll move the ESP collective bargaining agreement as presented in board docs.
Second.
Second by Brad, who beat Moira this time. We appreciate it.
Sorry.
I was stepping back.
Yes. Any questions, comments? Move seconded, all in favor? That's everyone who can vote, who is voting, and Eldred abstaining. Thank you. So again, that passes. And was there another one?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, that's it. Quick comments. We're very, very pleased to have two agreements with our bargaining units behind us, and certainly happy that we, the community and the administrative team and the staff for the various bargaining units have worked very hard on these agreements, and we're happy that they're passed and accepted by the unions and certainly accepted by us, and great that we can move on. Dr. Brown, that's a good thing. So thank you. And any other business by anyone? Just want to point out, students that elected to come tonight, you picked a good meeting to come to, because we're soon to be adjourned, and we don't have to go back into exec session, correct? Good for tonight. So, any other dates? Anything else we have to do? Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.